You're listening to the Plain Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carla Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 255 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me in the PTUK studios this week, as always, is my co-host Matt Smith.
Hello.
How are you, Matt?
I'm making Armando laugh already. Yes, I am absolutely fine. Thank you very much. It's been a bit stressful. I'm not going to lie.
I know.
I'm not going to lie, but we have had the most awesome.
I tell you what, we've had such a awesome meal.
Yeah.
Matt from Mama Smith, she has cooked up a storm in the kitchen.
Yes, absolutely.
So we had. I'm trying to quit your stuff now. Actually,
Yeah, it was a steak and
the
ale pie.
The dessert
was
just destroyed me. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Oh,
But
sorry
enough talk
that.
about food.
Right. Yeah. We'll get emails. Don't talk about food.
Also joining us this week, he's back. He's our other awesome co-host of the show, and he's the one who knows everything there is to know about the grey stuff. It's Armando.
I don't know if I would actually say that, but hey, everybody, happy Friday night. Happy to be back in the UK this week, actually.
Dude, you are allowed to be offended by him calling it grey stuff, by the way. That is allowed.
It's grey, though. It is grey.
It's not.
I don't know that I would want to break tradition, so we'll go with it.
Okay. Yes, you'll get emails from Captain Al if you change the name, I suspect. Yeah. How
are things with you, Armando? You've been on location for a little while, but you are back in the UK.
That's right. Yeah, I came back. I've been spending the week back here in the UK, and man, we've had some weather. So zero flying, zero thoughts of flying. It's just been, I don't know if we'll talk about it later, but it's about 40 knot winds almost every day this week. So.
You're going to have to ease up on the Brussels sprouts. It's no good.
I was going to say that's nothing. That's nothing for a 172 or 150. Like.
Right. if you say so.
If you like flying backwards.
Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
So, also joining us, you may have seen on my camera sitting beside me here, to my left, or it's probably to the right as you're looking at the screen.
Yeah.
He's definitely come a long way in more ways than one, because he's come a long way in regards to flying, but he's also come a long way in regards to distance to join us all the way here in the PTUK studios this week. It's Stephen Ivey.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, hello. I broke something. Hang on. We need to bring your microphone a bit closer. We should have tested this before we started, really, shouldn't we? Sorry. ever the professional. Okay, try that again.
There you go. Try that now.
Is that better?
That's much better. Thank you very much. Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry. And, how are you, Stephen?
I'm doing great. Great. Just a little tired from all the traveling and everything, and recovering from walking around from Rome. I did something to my ankle, so that's been very enjoyable. But other than that, I've been doing great.
So you're doing a bit of a European kind of tour as such?
Vacation, something like that. I managed a week off, and wanted to go to Rome, so I decided I was going to go there, and also take the time to come up here and visit you guys here in the UK.
And I can't believe, I was talking to Armando on the way here, because I picked Armando up in the, of course, TriStar van. And,
Armando?
Stephen, in the TriStar van.
The look of panic on Armando's face there for a minute. It's like, I haven't been in the TriStar van.
Well, actually, this is a shock for Armando, because he's obviously used to this part of the UK, but you're not used to this part of the UK. And we, as you know, we live in the...
arse end of nowhere.
Arse end of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are your views on the East Anglia region?
It's very scenic. Very scenic.
Very scenic.
Very Midwest. Oh. Fields everywhere. Nice shrubbery. Everyone's driving on the wrong side of the road.
Now, look at it now. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Your thoughts on this, Armando? Are we on the wrong side of the road?
Well, you know, what makes it difficult, you can never really make an opinion, because I go back and forth between Europe, the UK, and the US so much that I can never just keep it straight at all. So, quite literally, actually.
Yeah. I see what you did.
Somebody told me once, just put yourself in the middle of the road, in the center of the road.
No, I'm not sure that works. No, I don't want to do that. No, that's asking for a car crash. That is.
I'm guessing you've stayed away from motor vehicles since you've been here.
Yeah, I have never driven in the Europe or UK.
Oh.
Yeah.
I shouldn't. I wouldn't recommend it.
Steer clear. Flying's fine.
Right. Yeah.
Driving's
easy.
rubbish.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, as you'd know, if you if the weather was nice tomorrow, we were obviously going to have a trip out with the Cub,
East Anglia from the air, but I fear that may have to be put on hold for another time.
And on the note of strong winds, you may have noticed that we are missing a co-host this evening because, unfortunately, due to technical issues, Neville Bounds will not be with us tonight. But he's probably going to be watching at some point, possibly during the show, just to check we're here,
behaving,
and doing things right and stuff. Yeah. So
I know I'm going to get told off for having started 15 seconds late.
Yeah.
I know that much.
But Nev sends all his regards to everyone who has joined us and to those who have joined us in the chat room. Good evening to you all the usual family members in the chat room tonight. So hello to you all. It's good to see you all in the chat room on this Friday evening. It is the 8th of February and just coming up to 6 minutes past 7 on this evening, and we've got loads of stuff to get through tonight on the show, loads of news stories to go through on the show this week, and we've also got a little special piece of audio feedback sent in by listener Jan Hubner, who's telling us all about his experiences with the A320 and A321 with American Airlines. We've got that bit there. We've also got the military segment this week, brought to you by Armando this week, as always. He's chosen all the stories for the military segment this week. And and we've also going to have, obviously, with our guest here, Stephen, we're going to have a chat with Stephen and see how things have been going with you in regards to flying and all the ins and outs.
I think it's safe to say quite a lot has happened since you were last on the show.
Since, because I think we last saw you in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
No, he's been on the show since then.
Yeah.
He's been on the show
in the flesh.
In the flesh,
in Pittsburgh. Yeah. But welcome. Well, welcome into the studio.
Welcome to the studio.
Really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You had no idea how horrendous this is, did you? Actually, trying to get this silly thing on the air.
It's a lot more work than I thought it was, for sure. A lot more work.
All part of the fun.
So we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with a rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
I am, yes.
If you're ready, Armando.
Ready to go.
Stephen.
Let's go.
Let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story, this one is on the independent.co.uk. And unfortunately, it's about an airline that we all know and love here in the UK, and I think it's pretty well known in Europe. It's Thomas Cook. And Thomas Cook puts their in-house airline up for sale after increased losses. One of the UK's biggest holiday firms is seeking a buyer for its airline. Thomas Cook, which has just announced increased first quarter losses, says it will consider all options for its flying business to enhance value to shareholders and intensify our strategic focus. The tour operator stressed that flights will continue as normal and that any deal will require a buyer to provide the same level of carrying capacity for package holidays. The airline operates in the UK, the Nordic nations and Germany, where it uses the Condor brand. It's a mid-sized carrier with 103 aircraft in the fleet, flying around 20 million customers a year to 120 destinations, mostly in Europe, with long-haul operations particularly across the Atlantic. Unlike other airlines of a similar scale, Thomas Cook Airlines is in reasonably good health. It made a profit per passenger of over £6 in the most recent full financial year. That was at £6 per passenger. Just under half of its capacity is currently used by the tour operator arm for providing seats for package holiday customers. The remainder is sold to other holiday firms or direct to travellers. The sale would help Thomas Cook reduce its debt, currently at £1.59 billion, and accelerate its strategy of differentiation by opening exclusive hotels. This summer it will open 20 brand new hotels, and Thomas Cook's underlying loss for the first quarter, covering October to December, rose by £14 million to £60 million. Strong demand for Turkey, Egypt and Tunisia is offsetting weaker demand for Spain. Peter Frankhauser, Thomas Cook's chief executive, said, as expected, the knock-on effect from prolonged summer heat waves and high prices in the Canaries have impacted customer demand for the winter sun. Bookings for summer 2019 reflect some customers' uncertainty, particularly in the UK, and our decision to reduce capacity, which will both mitigate risk to our tour operator business and help our airline consolidate the strong growth achieved last year. Bookings for the summer 2019 with Thomas Cook are 12% down, reflecting a capacity cut aimed at reducing exposure and shoring up prices, which are 4% higher overall. It's a bit of a shame. Thomas Cook have been around for a long while now, and as it says, they have their Armed Condor, part of which is obviously based in Germany, which flies out. But I think it's safe to say around Europe, especially in Turkey and Spanish islands, and that Thomas Cook are quite busy because they do obviously have the package tour operator deals where they have the whole all-in-one package flight and hotel. But yeah, they had a bit of a refresh actually not so long ago, Thomas Cook, and
did they?
Yeah, a bit of a refresh.
Merge with somebody else in the UK as well, or did they buy somebody else?
TUI did, yeah. TUI moved, yeah.
Thomas
Cook, Thomas Cook of a similar kind of base, aren't they? Really, in regards to holidays and stuff, they do a kind of
I love
similar
how you're
thing.
looking at me as if I would know the
Oh,
answer
sorry.
to that question.
Armando, you must have probably seen the Condor brand of this where you've been recently, possibly.
Yeah, I've seen them flying in and out of different airports in Germany. I never actually knew that. I didn't know that they were part of the sort of Thomas Cook family. You guys have a lot of airlines over here. It's hard to keep up with them every once, or not every once in a while, but it's hard to keep up with them and who's who and who's based where. And yeah, you guys always amaze me every week with your knowledge of the airlines out here in Europe.
Yeah,
it's weird, isn't it? I suppose we're such a even here in the UK. You think how many airlines fly into and out of here? I mean, really, it's we ought to be small fry in comparison to
the US.
To the US, but and yet we seem to have more low cost carriers than anyone. Or let me rephrase that: we have access, perhaps, to more
choices.
Choices.
Yeah,
we have a lot of airlines in the US, but as Stephen can probably attest to it, they're usually flying on under somebody else's umbrella.
Yeah.
A lot of sub carriers.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So moving on to the next story, and the next story is for you, Matt, and it's one of those stories where, well, Ryanair have kind of they just don't want to let the customers go.
Right.
But
okay. It's because they haven't got many left. That's probably why. So this is on the Independent again, and the headline is Ryanair passengers stranded on aircraft for 6 hours. Almost 190 Ryanair passengers was left stranded on the tarmac in Prague with no food or water due to bad weather. Flight FR 2767 from Prague to Madrid was grounded on the morning of the 3rd of February with 189 passengers on board, reports The Sun. See, this is a phenomenon that really annoys me. So, sorry, it's like, February with 189 passengers on board, reports The Sun newspaper. I'm reading this on the Independent. No, just me? Okay, a snowstorm in Prague was causing delays, with Prague Airport warning that some flights will be affected by bad weather conditions. Passengers on board the aircraft were kept on the tarmac for around about 6 hours, local media reported. One passenger wrote on Twitter that they had been kidnapped on board for almost 7 hours. According to local media, the passengers spent the night at an airport hotel and were due to depart early the next morning, but one passenger tweeted a video of the plane still on the tarmac at 10:44 a.m. Another tweeted a photo of staff clearing the snow from the plane's engine. That's always a comforting sight. And a statement from Ryanair said that snow at Prague Airport and slow airport de-icing services caused a number of delays on Sunday the 3rd of February, including this flight to Madrid. Crew opened the bars on board and served refreshments, but the flight was regrettably cancelled as the crew went out of hours. All customers were provided with hotel accommodation and boarded a replacement flight, which departed to Madrid the following day. We sincerely apologise to all affected customers. The affected passengers finally touched down in Madrid more than 24 hours after they were due to arrive. This morning, Ryanair announced that 1 in 10 flights were delayed in January, a slight dip from January 2018. I can't help but feel, perhaps I'm in the minority here, but I can't help but feel this is a bit of a non-story.
Oh no, it's definitely a story. But what I was going to say, Stephen. I mean, you fly commercially passengers in the US, and I'm pretty sure that given the choice to fly an aircraft with its wings covered in ice and snow, or an aircraft that had been de-iced, I'm guessing you're going to want to fly an aircraft with no ice on the wings.
I would
and snow.
Most definitely prefer the one without any ice or snow on the wings. It's generally not a good thing. You definitely can't lift off the ground with that on the wings.
It's very heavy.
Yeah, it's very heavy. I know the other week I was coming back from Chicago and it took us 4 hours to de-ice just because of the weather, because they had that polar vortex.
Polar vortex.
And
Very similar.
and they couldn't de-ice the plane quick enough because it was just refreezing.
Freezing as fast as wow.
Yeah,
gosh,
it's very bad.
I mean, to be fair, there'd be worse places you could be stranded for 6 hours. I mean, they could have been sat on the tarmac outside the aircraft. In the snow.
Yeah, that's very true.
That there is that to it.
Would have made for good snowball fights and stuff, I suppose. But
do they not have the same rule over here where you can only be on the aircraft for up to 3 hours before you have to be allowed to get back off? Like they do in the States?
I don't think we have that here, actually. Armando?
Yeah, so I think it depends per country, right? So if this was in Prague, I don't. Often these airports, especially the Ryanair and some of the low-cost carriers that they go to, there's only going to be about 3 gates, and if there's already a bunch of people backed up in there, they've already cleared customs, they have to make a decision whether to, send them back inside or keep them out on the airplane because inside is full. So I don't think a lot of these countries have the same rules that we do in the U.S. Stephen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it definitely sounds a lot more complicated than in the States, for sure.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that this is a Ryanair story. I think it just happened to happen to Ryanair.
I was about to say that.
Nothing to do with Ryanair.
Yeah.
It's just the snow in the airplanes.
Well, that's kind of where I was going really when I'm sort of suggesting that it's a bit of a non-story. Do you know what I mean? It's essentially, it's a story that was printed originally by The Sun and picked up by The Independent. I think they're quoting The Sun because if there is any inaccuracy, then they'll go after The Sun rather than The Independent. It's a bit of a cop-out, I'm not going to lie. I don't know. Is it just me that...
Just trying to rub some dirt on Ryanair.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got nothing to do with them at all.
So moving on to the next story, and because Nev's unfortunately not here, I'm going to step in and take over for Nev. I know, try and give some support to the BA.
Right.
So the next story on
just because you're flying with them in
I
November,
know.
honestly.
The next story on the independent.co.uk, blimey, they're getting a good hammer in this week, is a BA story, obviously, and it's British Airways terminal at New York JFK Airport to close. Oh dear.
Oh, cool.
So British Airways is to leave its own terminal at New York JFK Airport and move in with its alliance partner, American Airlines. The move from Terminal 7 to Terminal 8 will take place in 2022. BA is the only non-US airline to have a terminal at New York's premier airport. It has occupied Terminal 7 for decades, including through the Concorde era. It is the main tenant but shares the terminal with its sister airline, Iberia, and 8 other airlines. The move to Terminal 8 will allow Terminal 7 to be demolished to accommodate a much expanded presence for the hometown airline JetBlue. BA and the airport owner, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, are investing £250 million to recreate and customise Terminal 8 with additional stands, improved baggage systems and new lounges. Yet British Airways is to pump another £52 million into the existing facility to see it through the next 3 years, to provide brand new lounges for First and Club World customers and an upgraded customer experience for all customers, including Neville Bounds. BA's chairman and chief executive, Alex Cruz, said that we look forward to working with the Port Authority and American Airlines to continue building a world-class transatlantic travel experience in our new home from 2022. The move will make connections easier between BA's transatlantic services and American Airlines' domestic links. Some business passengers will welcome the move because it will allow them to switch easily between BA and American Airlines without changing terminals. A passenger who misses the 10:25 American Airlines departure to Heathrow and who wants to catch the 11:15 British Airways flight bus change terminals. BA's rival, Virgin Atlantic, is already co-sited with its partner Delta in JFK's Terminal 4. Also at New York's JFK, Air France has inaugurated a beauty treatment centre in its Terminal 1 lounge, and first and business class passengers will be able to enjoy 2 private beauty booths with a massage table for the longer treatments.
Ew.
Like in a real beauty institute.
Well, there we are.
Well, it's safe to say that obviously when Nev goes obviously on his jaunts over to JFK, that he'll have a nice new lounge to use, I suppose.
He'll be very excited, I'm quite sure.
Did you fly to JFK when you went to...
No, we went
States?
into Newark.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
Newark,
we flew into Newark. And I have to say that our experience at Newark was really good.
Have you flown into JFK, Stephen?
I have actually been to that terminal building back when I was a flight attendant working United Express. That's where they parked on the other side of where the BA gates were.
Okay.
And that was back in 2011, and even then the terminal was a little dated. Just not enough room to walk. It was really tight quarters and everything. It was definitely meant for the Concorde. I think it was kind of retrofitted to that, and you could tell that on the backside where the Concorde Lounge used to be and all that. It was kind of fitted for that and all that. But
that's not an airport you've flown into then, personally?
I have
not with Acme Junior.
No, I haven't flown to any New York airport, and if I can avoid that for the longest time period, I will be completely happy with it.
Quite
Yes.
happy, yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Wimp.
So, moving on to the next story, Armando.
This is from the BBC News. So we're talking
good
about
old auntie.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
We're back.
Yes.
Germania Airline files for bankruptcy, unfortunately. So the budget airline Germania has filed for bankruptcy and canceled all of its flights with immediate effect. The Berlin-based airline, which flew to destinations across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, transported more than 4 million passengers per year. It has blamed rising fuel prices and currency fluctuations as 2 factors. The managing director, Karsten Balk, said, "We ultimately failed to successfully complete our financing efforts to meet short-term liquidity needs. We very much regret that, and as a consequence, we had no choice but to file for bankruptcy." The company has said that passengers who had booked flights as part of a package should contact their tour operator and make different arrangements, but added that people who booked directly with them were not entitled to a replacement flight.
Oh, wow.
This is, and I think we've seen this a couple times with some of the airlines in the past 12 months going under, right? But,
it certainly seems like a reoccurring theme over here. These low-cost budget airlines kind of going belly up. I don't know if it's just too much competition or...
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a funny one, isn't it? Because
it's a loss for us because they flew into Norwich.
Into and out of Norwich, yeah, absolutely. One of the few that still did, to be fair.
It's a shame. They used, funnily enough, their flight path into Norwich, Germania, always seemed to be one of the few airlines who used to have this weird thing of flying over here about 4,000 feet on the approach into Norwich, whereas the other airlines never used to do that, which is quite good because you got to see the aircraft up quite close.
It's always nice.
But no, Germania, it's a shame. They've been around a while, and as I said, they're a popular airline. I haven't personally flown on them, but I've had a few friends who have flown on Germania and said that the service was good. So, but it's always sad to see the airlines go.
So what were they usually
disappear.
flying? What was their plane of choice?
They had the 700 series 737s.
Oh, okay.
They also had, as the picture shows on here, the 321.
Right.
Yeah, 321. I think they had some 320s as well, if I'm right. But it's a shame, especially for the staff, because it's, not only is it bad for obviously customers, it's also bad. You've got to remember the staff, the pilots, the flight crew, and everyone who was had a part to play within the airline.
Yeah.
So it's sad. Armando? You going to say something? No. And moving on to the next story. So, Stephen, the next story for you, which is on the NJ.com website. It's a United story.
Oh, it's a United story. Oh, boy. Well, let's see. United Airlines will woo high-fare passengers by retrofitting more than 100 airplanes to add more premium seats on key routes. The airline also plans to start using a new 50-seat jet with mostly premium seats on some key business travel routes. United announced that the moves Wednesday that they are part of an industry trend to give more space, better service to high-paying passengers who account for a disproportionate share. Is that disproportionate?
Correct, yes.
Okay, disproportionate share of the airline revenue. Andrew Orkella, the airline's chief commercial officer, said executives decided that United has a shortage of business seats into the premium markets, and this fixed that problem. Henry Hartervelt, an airline analyst at Atmosphere Research, said the United's announcement was a bold challenge to Delta Airlines, the acknowledged frontrunner among the nation's top 3 carriers for its on-time performance and strong profit margins. This is big news. They are taking direct aim at Delta and its strength with the premium travelers. United will retrofit 21 of its Boeing 767-300ER jets starting in the next several weeks. It will reduce seats from 214 to 167 by shrinking the economy section while growing from 30 to 46 business class seats and adding 22 premium seats. The plane will first fly between United's hub in Newark and London. The airline also plans to add a few more first-class seats to its Airbus 319 and 320 planes by the end of the year, and it hopes to begin flying new 50-seat Bombardier CRJ 550 jets.
Bombardier!
Thank you. Between Chicago and...
I haven't said that for so long. Sorry. It's like Tourette's. Sorry. Carry on.
Jets between Chicago and smaller markets with many business travelers such as Northwest Arkansas, the home of Walmart, and federal regulators have not yet certified the plane. Small 50-seat planes are notorious for being cramped, unpopular with many travelers, not pilots. United's new small planes, 18 feet longer than the plane it currently uses, will have 10 business seats, 20 economy plus seats, and 20 regular seats. By making these 50-seat jets more comfortable, United has a good chance of attracting more business and frequent flyers, said Hardvelt, the analyst. Well, it looks like United is trying to compete with some of its competition in Chicago. I'm not as sure about the move on the mainline jets, but I personally, talking about this new 50-seat jet, it's not a new jet. So this CRJ 550 is the current CRJ 700, which holds, I believe it's 65 or 70 in the current configuration at United, and they're going to retrofit it to where it just has 50 seats now. So I saw on another article where they were showing the configuration. So if anyone's ever been on a CRJ 700 in the States, usually United you have the galley, a dividing wall, and then the cabin. So now you're going to have a galley on both sides with a self-service snack type thing and drink station, and then a closet to store your luggage, and then there's going to be 2 more closets that's going to divide business and the economy cabin, so you don't have to valet check your bag anymore. You can just bring it on the airplane, throw it in the closet, and then sit down. But I believe they are right in saying that this is going to help them out tremendously. I know, for instance, on the Chicago, Colorado Springs, they fly a CRJ 200, which is just 50 seats, no business. And then American flies a CRJ-7 with a business cabin and a little bit more room in the back. So it's definitely going to be a slight game changer, I think, on how they...
Are you a United fan, Armando?
I don't get to fly United very much. Most of my flights are on American, Delta, and their, sort of BA Virgin. But I was, as Stephen was reading that, I was looking up some of the prices from... I just put in Newark to LAX, and a economy class ticket just at a random time was $881.
Oh, good line.
But a premier class ticket was $1,700 for the same time at the same flight. So you can see, when the airlines are looking at how many seats in each class are we going to put in, they're doing that math. That passenger seat miles, they're doing that math as to what's going to be the most profitable for them. And if it means taking out 3 rows of economy and putting in more premium, businesses will pay it. Yeah. Most of us won't, but a company will.
I mean, you guys will know better than what we do here in the UK. But in the UK, we've got a lot of airlines, as we said earlier, all competing with lower prices, and trying to beat each other. In the US, do you find there is a big difference between Airline A and Airline B with price, or are the prices all pretty much the same?
I would say they're almost identical on certain routes. I think it's a little bit location biased too. I know I live in Atlanta, so you're going to fly Delta anywhere because that's all there is. But if you are looking at like competing markets like going Atlanta to Chicago, you can see the prices there, maybe $1 or $2 difference between them. But if you're, for instance, going to go Atlanta to somewhere in the South where it's a direct flight, it could be upwards of $300 more, or you can pay $200 less and then go through Charlotte or Chicago to go to the same place. So it's very location biased as far as fares and everything.
Ouch.
Yeah, I'll agree with Stephen on that one. There's not a lot of difference in most of the major airlines.
Because, like I say, in the UK, you've got the choice with like the low cost cats such as EasyJet, Ryanair that we talk about all the time, and Jet2, another big carrier here in the UK, and the prices do fluctuate a lot between them. You can save yourself £100, £200 on the same route with a different airline.
But I think a lot of they're competing on like these short international markets. Y'all don't have like a domestic market per se, because you're not going to fly London to Birmingham or London to Liverpool because you could take the train and it's so much cheaper, right?
Well, actually, it is cheaper sometimes, believe it or not, to fly.
Yeah,
really? I kid you not.
Oh.
Some of the flight prices now in the UK, if you search to go from, we're in the east of England here, but if we go to London Stansted, which is only an hour and a half's drive from here, as you know, you can. Sometimes it's cheaper to drive to Stansted and get a flight from Stansted to London to Edinburgh, Scotland.
Yes.
It's cheaper to get a flight than it is to drive or get a train.
Oh, okay. There was a story not that long ago, if my memory serves, where it was actually, I think somebody wanted to go.
That was.
Oh, was it? So they wanted to go, and it was something like wanting to go to Edinburgh, and they lived down south or something silly, and it was actually cheaper for them to go via somewhere stupid like Rome,
or
something like that.
Yeah.
It was actually cheaper to fly than it was to get on the train and go to Edinburgh. Frankly, that is the problem here in the UK. I mean, it is the
and I think that's the beauty with websites like Skyscanner, where you can type in. I mean, there's other websites, but Skyscanner is the one I normally look at. You can go on, type a destination, location, and to fly from at a time, and it will bombard you with a choice of prices with various airlines.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this story too much longer, but this kind of goes back to the last story about the JFK terminal and BA and American Airlines. So if there's not much price difference, I despise connecting at JFK, but if I know that I have an easier connect, so they in that article they talk about Delta and Virgin, that is a terrible. You need 3 hours to move terminals if you're going into a regional airline after that.
Is that just because of the size of the airport, or?
No, well, sometimes it is the size of the airport, but specifically in JFK, you have to switch terminals, which it means you have to leave the terminal, go back through security, come back in, and you have to take a bus anyways between two different parts in that terminal. So if there's not much of a price difference, I'm gonna go with something like an airline that has an easier connection to make my trip a little bit easier. Those little things like the terminal upgrades and getting co-located with your code share, I think it does make a difference for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we're going to welcome into the chat room a name I haven't seen before, Matt. Aspire Pilot.
Ooh.
Not seen that name in the chat room. So hello, Aspire Pilot. Whereabouts are you in the world?
That's the
we do want
worst
to know.
Somerset accent I've ever heard in my entire life.
Well.
What was that all about?
I don't know. It's that meal. The steak and ale pie that we had for tea tonight had so much ale in it. It was,
right,
you know,
okay, that's it, yeah. Can't drive home.
Can't drive home.
No.
No. So moving on to the next story, and this one is on ttgmedia.com. And
I'm sorry, what?
ttgmedia.com.
What is that?
It's a website that I go to for all our stories.
Is it?
And
right.
the headline...
it makes it change from The Independent, I'll give you that.
And the headline, well, it's the B word. EasyJet reveals full extent of Brexit preparations.
This is not fair, honestly.
So EasyJet has revealed the full extent of its efforts to ensure it's able to continue flying to and from the EU after Brexit, and in the event of a no-deal Brexit. Blimey, we've heard about this for the last God knows how long. I wish I'd just pull the fingers out and do something. Anyway, Chairman John Barton issued an update on the airline's Brexit preparations following its 2019 AGM on Thursday, which was yesterday. Barton said while EasyJet was confident a reciprocal UK-EU right to fly arrangement would emerge should the UK leave the Union without a deal, it was prudent the airline continued to establish itself in Europe. EasyJet announced plans in 2017 to establish a new airline, EasyJet Europe, headquartered in Vienna, so it could continue flying between EU countries under an Austrian operating licence. It's also been pursuing a majority EU ownership, a requirement to continue flying in Europe post-Brexit. Barton on Thursday revealed EasyJet had so far re-registered more than 1,000 pilots, 3,300 cabin crew and 133 aircraft in Austria. Other preparations include further increasing its EU ownership to 49%, just shy of the 50% one shared requirement to continue operations in Europe post-Brexit, and setting up a new spare parts hub in the EU to limit exposure to any logistical supply chain risks between the EU and the UK, which is fairly obvious because most of EasyJet's fleet, well, they are all Airbus, and Airbus is built in France, so yeah, it's always good. He also confirmed EasyJet's Austrian operation had been ring-fenced to ensure there is no reliance on existing EU traffic rights by the UK airline. While we're operationally well prepared as we get closer to Brexit, we remain focused on the broader external risks that could emerge, in particular in the event of a no-deal Brexit, said Barton. These risks may be sector and or non-sector specific, and their impact is by definition less certain. This would include any impact on consumer confidence or the potential cost and operational impacts arising from increased friction in travel between the EU and the UK.
I know who a spy pilot is, by the way.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do. He's been in this very studio.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's Ben.
It's Ben. Ben Rourke, yeah.
Absolutely.
Hello, Ben.
Sorry.
EasyJet also recorded passenger numbers in 2018 of 88.5 million, up 10.2% on 2017's figures. So it's safe to say that EasyJet are definitely putting things in place to protect themselves from the
I have
B
a question
word.
actually for because we're very lucky. We have two very proud Americans at either side.
Do you like Brexit?
Yeah, no. But the question I was going to ask actually, are you guys literally laughing at us? Over all this, I mean, are you even vaguely? I mean, we feel like it's a really big thing, and it obviously here it's massive news, like continuously. I mean, I can't remember there ever being a day where the Brexit wasn't like part of the rolling news program. I mean, are you even aware of it in the States? Really? I mean,
Do me do the sound effects.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. You're right. Yeah.
I think people are aware of it. I think if you live in the U.S., unless you're involved in business, right? Because Brexit is gonna affect trade and it's gonna affect the economy. So I think if you're in that industry, or an industry that may be affected by it in the U.S., I think you're probably very much in tune with what's going on.
Right.
I think for me living here in the UK, while it may not affect me directly, I know you guys, right? So I have a lot of friends here in the UK. I have a lot of friends in Europe. So, when Captain Al was talking about getting his license, his commercial pilot's license re-registered in a different country, that's when I sort of pay attention to it. Is how is it going to affect the people around me?
Affect you? Yeah, absolutely. It's. I mean,
you should see the comments in the chat room.
Yeah,
now.
no, I can't read any of them
so
out
good.
because it's just not allowed. But yeah,
actually, Micah makes a very good point. Our main man, Micah, he says that we are not laughing about Brexit. Looks at our crazy politics. At least your government has not closed recently in the UK.
Well, there is that, I suppose. I mean, it might as well be closed. Let's be honest. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm just intrigued to know, sort of, because I feel like it's this. It's the continuous elephant in the room, certainly, as far as us UKites are concerned. And I don't know. I just sort of feel like perhaps we're being, not laughed at, but I think it's safe to say it's not going smoothly.
No, God.
You're definitely not getting laughed
my,
at as much
my
as we
lovely
are.
bride in the chat room, kind of put it mildly to say, we've got our own situations going on in the U.S. So I don't know that we're anybody to laugh at somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but say what you like about that particular situation. I mean, in some respects, you've almost got to admire the fact that, in his manifestos, he said that these things were going to happen, and everybody suddenly really supplies, because for the very first time ever, a politician is actually doing what he said he was going to do, whether you agree with it or not. I mean, you can't help but feel. So anyway, sorry, enough politics.
Moving on.
Moving on.
We must move on, Matt. We must move on because the next story's yours.
Oh, is it? Oh, I haven't brought it up. I've been too busy talking about my favourite subject.
The next story for Matt is on the EuropeanCleaningJournal.com, and a special one. This is
what now?
A special one. This is, and we're dedicating.
Where on earth did you find it? It's ECJ again.
We're dedicating this story especially to Nev because it's a BA story. But this, I have to say, Matt, this story is filthy.
Right, okay. Here we go, everyone. This is on the European Cleaning Journal. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously a hive of aviation-related content. The headline is British Airways cuts turnaround times by skimping on cleaning. So this was released on the 7th of February 2019. British Airways has been testing a new way of reducing turnaround times by avoiding carrying out a full aircraft clean between flights. Works for Ryanair. Sorry. The system was trialled over a period of 4 days on flights from London Heathrow to Dublin. Well, that's hardly fair. It's like the shortest flight that they can do. While any rubbish found in seat pockets and in overhead lockers was removed by the usual cabin staff, no extra cleaning tasks were carried out either in the cabins or in the lavatories. Oh, I'm not sure about that. Oh, no. The cabin was then given a quality check by a senior manager before passengers were allowed to board, with a cleaning crew standing by in case the aircraft was deemed not up to standard. So you're still paying them because they're on standby. Anyway, the trial formed part of an effort by British Airways to look at ways of minimising turnaround times in cases where airlines face severe disruptions, such as during extreme weather conditions. It is believed that cutting down turnaround times could allow aircraft to make up for lost time and avoid delays in arrival at the destination. BA claims to have received no customer complaints concerning cleanliness following the trial, but union officials that the move could lead to BA managers expecting cabin crew to clean the aircraft in place of cleaners in future. There are also fears that security could be compromised if cleaners are not required to perform a thorough cabin check. Now, I'm not sure about that bit because actually, to be fair, and I use, well, initially in jest, but actually I use Ryanair as an example of this. I suppose because in most cases, I think you'll probably find that your average plane will do probably no more than 3 or 4 sectors before it goes back to base to have essentially a major overnight clean anyway when it's doing sort of short haul sectors. I don't know if this is as bigger. I mean, all right, yes, I'd quite like somebody to maybe wipe a loo seat, but I don't know if this is as big a deal as. Yeah, no, okay. Stephen looks horrified, ladies and gentlemen.
That's because Stephen keeps a very clean air.
Well, I don't doubt that for a second, but he looks horrified.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know my airline. We partner with other airlines, and there's definitely the carriers some clean the plane more than others. Without throwing any names out there, sometimes it's just when you come back to the hub. Sometimes it's when you call for it, and sometimes it's only when it's absolutely necessary. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what I guess it's more of a matter of what kind of image do you want to present.
Have
to
you
your
ever got on the
customers.
flight deck and thought, oh God, blimey, crisps everywhere and
Well,
peanuts?
Well,
and-
you know, that's the thing. They don't come up there and clean the flight deck. It's the pilot's responsibility. So if it's dirty up there, well, you know the guy that's been up there.
That
so
did it last time,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of a pig.
Where do you sit on this particular issue, Armando?
I don't know that I know that airlines are looking at every single avenue to cut costs. I'm not sure this is the right avenue to go
I mean,
down. So
in fairness to BA, they are claiming that it is not due to sort of trying to save money. It's more to try and sort of speed up their turnaround times. And to a degree, I understand what they're saying, but of course, in reality, there may not be an earlier slot available. If you've missed your slot that you were supposed to I guess they're sort of suggesting that maybe without having to have a major clean, then you might be able to make your previous departure slot, perhaps, if you've arrived a bit late. But I don't know. I don't know. It's as you say, I'd like to think it's not because it's saving costs and just sort of I don't know.
I'd rather not think about how many people have sat in that seat and used that table that folds down.
Before it was wiped last time. Yeah. Yeah.
So moving on to the next clean story.
Good job on that one, Carlos.
Yeah. Well done. Thanks for that.
So this one was a Nev story. So this one is on the airlineratings.com website, and we've talked about this aircraft for a few weeks now on the show, and the A380, the big Airbus A380, and
Never heard of
it's
it.
bad news. More bad news this week for Airbus because Qantas has cancelled its 8 remaining A380 orders. So Qantas has formally cancelled its 8 remaining Airbus A380 orders, leaving it with a fleet of 12 as technology and fuel economy catch up with the Super Jumbo. The long-expected cancellation had been flagged previously and comes as Airbus looks to end the production of the giant of the skies after key customer Emirates indicated it would swap orders for more fuel-efficient Airbus aircraft such as the twin-engine A350 and A330. The move means that Airbus will update its order book to reflect the cancellation. Following discussions with Airbus, Qantas has now formalised its decision not to take 8 additional A380s that were ordered in 2006, Qantas said in a statement. These aircraft have not been part of the airline's fleet and network plans for some time, and Qantas remains committed to a major upgrade of its existing A380s, which begins in mid-calendar 2019 and will see us operate the aircraft well into the future. In the long term, Qantas is expected to replace the A380 and the Boeing 747 with a mixture of 787s and either the Boeing 777X or the A350. Another 747 will leave the fleet this month of Qantas, leaving it with 9 in the fleet, and the last aircraft is scheduled to leave in 2020. The problem for the A380 is that technology has flown past it, and while the passengers love the aircraft, its accountants don't. Possibly that is the simplest explanation as to why the A380 Super Jumbo appears to be struggling to stay in production. Only one airline, Emirates, has really made the aircraft work the way its build is intended, with flash bars and showers. And the interior has been driven by one man, Emirates President Sir Tim Clark, whose vision of mass travel has propelled Emirates to one of the world's largest international carriers. But technology has left the A380 behind, and changing traffic patterns have also thrown out the business case of the giant hubs. Since the A380 was designed in the late 1990s, the lighter all-composite aircraft have emerged like the 787, the A350 that burn 34% less fuel per passenger. The A380's engines have been leapfrogged twice, and the new 777X, to be rolled out shortly, will burn around 40% less fuel per passenger because of its new generation General Electric engine, the GE9X. Now, have you flown the 380?
I have not
Stephen?
been on the 380 or the
No?
74.
No, it's
Lane Street says in the chat room, "Long live the Queen." That's what.
yeah, it's the 747.
Yeah, the 747.
I
Yeah,
know.
it's sort of a bit of a shame. I think it's safe to say there's somebody in the chat room who's definitely got a man crush on one of our guests.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but Pilot Pip seems to be having a moment to himself.
Oh, really? Okay. See, I told you, you're famous now.
Yeah,
Steve.
absolutely. Yeah. He got a little bit excited. Yeah.
What do you think, Armando, about the whole ever decreasing A380 issue?
Yeah, I think it's a well-written article, and that it's kind of restating everything that everybody already knows in the industry, that you gotta be more efficient. You gotta reduce those operating costs, and these airplanes they mentioned, the A350, the 777X, and the 787. It's gonna be hard to compete with them. So
it is a shame,
and I think it hurts it too. It doesn't have a large cargo capacity when you start loading up all the passengers, if I understand that right. So you can't compensate your or revenue or whatever with the additional cargo because you've got so many people on board. Maybe if you took out a shower, you could throw in a Ferrari or something on board.
That is an option, certainly. Yeah,
it always surprised me why Airbus never went down the cargo avenue with this aircraft. Like
are there any A380? Are there any A380 cargo?
No. Boeing done it with the 74. You've obviously got the 747 cargo.
So what's the Beluga based off of then? Because I thought
the Beluga is based on the new one's based on the 330.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the older Beluga was based on the 300.
Yeah, 300. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a shame. It's a shame. But as I said, I think Emirates are. Emirates have got millions of these A380s. So I think they've.
I'm just thinking out loud here. When you retire them, apartment complexes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Have you seen the one in? I think it's in. I'm sure it's in Amsterdam somewhere. There's a 747.
Yes.
It's been converted into a hotel.
Is it?
And you can actually like the master, like the posh penthouse or whatever suite is the flight deck.
Posh.
And it's you can actually sleep on the flight deck. It's
yeah,
awesome.
there was another article this week that I saw. I don't think we're going to talk about it, but it was a 747 that was getting moved into in front of one of the hotels, and I can't remember what country that was in, but I remember seeing that story this week. So yeah, I guess repurpose them as I think apartment complexes is a great idea.
So moving on to the next story, Armando. This one is a chilly story for you, but I love this airline.
Chilly story.
I think I'm dressed appropriately for this story, but I actually love this one. It's from the USA Today. It's Alaska Airlines puts Captain Marvel on one of its Boeing 737s. Alaska Airlines has added the comic-themed special livery in advance of the new Captain Marvel movie, which is set to debut on March 8th. The special edition paint scheme was unveiled Tuesday at Alaska Airlines hub in Seattle. The movie has generated Hollywood buzz for becoming Marvel Studios' first film to feature a female superhero character in the lead role. Captain Marvel, played by Brie Larson, is a one-time Air Force fighter pilot who is now helping to keep Earth safe from intergalactic threats. It's aviation
Always
related.
a word. Absolutely.
Let's see. We're excited to showcase a pilot who's risen to superhero status, an image that embodies strength and confidence and inspires future aviators across our expansive network to go further. Way to tie it in, Miss Natalie Bowman, Alaska Airlines Managing Director of Marketing and Advertising. Let's see. It's not the first special livery for Alaska. The airline has about 24 special edition paint schemes, ranging from turboprops painted in the colors of Western universities to 737s painted in Disney themes.
Ooh, gotta love a bit of Disney.
Here, I'm going to try to pronounce these correct, or like get the wording correct. So, other notable designs are Salmon 30 Salmon 2, which is a 737, obviously. More to Love is a 737-900ER with a, red and purple fuselage that pays homage to Alaska Airlines' merger with Virgin America. We have Spirit of Disney, a 737, Timbers Jet, another 737 in the colors of the Portland Timbers pro soccer team, and a Bombardier Q400 painted in the colors of Boise State University, which they talked about a little bit. So I love these special edition paint schemes. I think they're cool.
Yeah.
I still think that. What was the one that had the R2D2 on it and stuff like that?
Oh, ANA.
ANA.
Yeah.
I saw it
Yeah.
a couple times in Chicago.
Yeah, I got.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It
so jealous.
It stands out. It stands out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but then I'm a bit of a massive Star Wars.
And then what? I think it's Eva Air that have the Hello Kitty.
That's it.
777.
Hello Kitty.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
No,
Hello
we did
Kitty.
see the livery on that. Yeah. Livery.
Yeah,
Is it livery or
Norwegian.
Norwegian?
Yeah, Norwegian with their notable figures on
Yeah.
on the tails of the aircraft. That always makes me Google somebody, right?
Yep.
Well, there we are. That's there's. I don't know what. Sorry, I'm very
We're going to put
tired.
you
I
on the
do
tail too,
apologise.
Matt. Have Matt Smith on the tail of a.
Yeah,
of an
no.
aircraft.
I was thinking it's time for my tablets. I don't know. What
So
Anyway.
moving swiftly on
Yeah.
before Matt has a meltdown.
Yeah.
The next story for you, Stephen, is on the awesome site Flight Global.
Yes. So Flight Global is talking about a incident with Go Air Airbus 320 shut down the wrong engine after experiencing power plant vibrations following a bird strike. So this happened on June 21st, 2017, taking off from runway 9 at Mumbai. At around 115 knots, the aircraft suffered a bird strike on the right-hand CFM56 power plant. While an automated advisory alerted to high vibrations on the right-hand engine, this was not called out by the first officer, says the Indian government's inquiry to the event. Although the first officer queried whether the captain wanted to reject the takeoff as the jet was still far below the V1 decision speed of 146 knots, the captain opted to proceed and diagnose the situation once airborne. The inquiry says the captain had received no input regarding the engine vibration. Once airborne, the first officer misinterpreted the N1 speed rating of the right-hand engine vibration of the left-hand engine. The inquiry states the first officer called out a beyond-limit vibration of the unaffected left-hand engine, and as a result of the incorrect assessment, the left-hand engine was incorrectly shut down around 30 seconds after rotation.
Ouch.
Thrust of the problematic right-hand engine was increased, and the aircraft was left to climb on this engine alone for over 3 minutes. Oh boy. The first officer says in inquiry, repeatedly advised the captain incorrectly that the left-hand engine was experiencing out-of-limit vibration. ATC directed the aircraft to stop climbing around 3,000 feet, and the captain subsequently realized that the vibration was actually the right-hand engine. The crew, recognizing the error, began to restart the left-hand engine, but before it was fully operational, reduced the thrust on the right-hand engine to idle. Oh my word. Investigators point out that at this stage the aircraft was flying only on idle thrust from an engine that had been suffering technical problems. The initial attempt to restart the left-hand engine resulted in a fault. The crew increased power on the right-hand engine while rectifying the situation. It goes on to talk about the various mistakes that this crew made.
Was there a CRM issue here, Stephen?
There's for sure a CRM issue, maybe even a training issue. I mean, I know for me, when I was going through training, if you have an engine failure on takeoff, most of the training it was right at V1, so you're going to take it flying anyway. But even once you're going to rotate, you do nothing with the thrust or anything until you get up to a safe altitude and you can start troubleshooting the issue. And once you go through your first checklist, you start verifying your gauges, and then once you verify that, you go to the QRH, you go step by step, and then you put your hand on the thrust lever you want to shut down. That should reflect what the gauges are saying, and then you both audibly confirm that that's the one you want to shut down, and then you shut it down.
So definitely a
CRM
issue.
I would say so, yes.
Yeah.
And not only that, I mean, not calling out an engine rolling back on takeoff, I believe that's just poor piloting right there. I mean, for me, if I see something wrong, I'm calling it out right away, because regardless of what it is, you need to make the decision pretty quick. So,
What do you say, Armando?
I'll completely agree with Stephen on all of this. First of all, every time you go into the sim, you're going to get a V1 cut. So it's something that you plan for. It's probably one of the things that you practice the most, and and even taking that back even further to your basic multi-engine training when you're flying a light twin, everything centers around identify and verify, and none of those concepts should change. They should only be more ingrained in you as you move on. And this was a pretty good breakdown, just like Steven said it, in training, in crew resource management. Misinterpreting 3 minutes. 3 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
And I'll say this too. I just went on to read the rest of it. They did land safely, amazingly. I don't know how they did, but they actually went around single engine because they were too high. So they actually went around for another lap in the pattern single engine before they actually finally got it back on the ground safely. So,
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
They got away with this one, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, the 320. I mean, as much as we all either love or hate Airbus, I mean, even the Boeing or the Airbus, they're both well automated aircraft with systems that will tell you what's going on,
And
where the issues are.
I think that article even points out the aircraft compensated the bad engine to put more power in because they shut down the good engine. So the plane knew what was going on, but they didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. Is this? Did I see? I can't remember whether it was in the BFF or whether it was somewhere else. But there was a discussion about like automation and stuff in aircraft. There was sort of some people were saying perhaps there needs to be less automation and stuff. Sort of like talking about safety systems and things like that. I mean, presumably you've got to sort of understand what I don't know. You've got to sort of understand what's going on, really. I mean, this almost sounds essentially like they weren't quite sure what the aircraft was doing, and therefore overcompensating.
It's hard to explain
Yeah.
this one. This is a basic flying skill for multi-engine aircraft, no matter if it's a Cessna 310 or a A340. It's just I don't know that there's much to explain on this one other than it was just a serious crew failure. Automation is great, but then we saw what happened with Ryanair.
Yeah.
So there's a good middle ground. You still gotta fly the plane.
I mean, I will say, I think the automation saved them in this case.
Right. Okay.
I mean, because I doubt they were hand flying at that point. So I mean, the automation definitely probably saved them in this case.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fair point. Yeah.
Well, there you go. I'll tell you what, Matt, we're going to have to get Stephen back here next week. Can you get a quick flight across? Anyway, moving on to the next story, and this one's on Flight Global, and it's actually about regarding an aircraft that we have some feedback on coming up later. This is Aer Lingus plans to introduce the Airbus A321LR on flights to Hartford in July, marking the debut of the long-range narrowbody to the North Atlantic market. The carrier will begin flying the A321LR between Dublin and Hartford from the 1st of July, and then between Dublin and Montreal from the 8th of August. Flight Global schedules updated over the weekend show the aircraft is shown with 184 seats. It's not quite as full as you can. I think you can squeeze about 221.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
220s for sure.
Yeah, Aer Lingus serves Hartford with a Boeing 757-200 at the moment, while Montreal is a new destination. The A321LR is Airbus's offering to replace the 757. You can't replace the 757. On longer missions, including across the Atlantic, it has 3 additional centre fuel tanks that will allow it to fly up to 4,000 nautical miles or 7,400 kilometres. Aer Lingus's introduction of the type on flights to Hartford will be the first transatlantic A321LR service by any carrier, current schedule show. Airbus delivered the first A321LR to Arkia Israel Airlines in November, and Aer Lingus has firm orders for 8 A321LRs, with 4 due in 2019, Fleets Analyzer shows. Executives have outlined plans for a fleet of 12 in the future. The A321LR is also expected to operate Aer Lingus' new service to Minneapolis-St. Paul. That begins on the 8th of July, and the airline's Director of Global Sales and Vice President of North America, Bill Bryan, said in December. The airline expects its first aircraft well ahead of July and plans to operate familiarization flights in Europe before introducing it on the transatlantic Brian added. Aer Lingus, which is owned by International Airlines Group, IAG, is focused on joining the transatlantic joint venture with fellow IAG-owned carriers BA and Iberia, executives said in January, and no timeline was provided. The Irish carrier benefits from US pre-clearance facilities at its Dublin hub, which allow its flights to arrive at domestic flights at US airports. And that's good news for Airbus, obviously, with the 321. I've flown on the 321, but not the 321 LR. But are you a 321 lover, Stephen?
I am not a 321 lover. I'm not saying it's a bad aircraft. I just, I don't know. I feel like it's not as comfortable as it's made out to be, especially in the U.S. I know Delta, they have them a pretty good, but now it's replacing their 5.7. I feel like it's a little bit more cramped in the way the configuration is, because, you know, it's got the L2 door like the 5.7 does, but they don't use it. And when you actually get on board the aircraft, there's a bathroom right before you get to the door, and it just, the layout just, it's not there for me. I don't know. But, you know, just talk about it going long range over the ocean. I know we were talking about Matt's experience flying, you know, the 5.7.
The 7.5,
across the pond. And
it's a lovely aircraft. I don't know what you're on about.
So, I mean, I don't know if a 321 would be much better for going across the pond.
Plus, I mean, we've all got to admit this as aviation fans, that I do believe that the A321LR in full thrust on takeoff will not sound anywhere near as good as the Rolls-Royce RB211 powered 757.
And it will not look as good either.
No.
Nope, sits too low to the ground.
Armando, you keeping quiet?
No, I was actually thinking all the exact same things. I was thinking about Matt's trip, and I was like, well, this is a perfect replacement for a 757 to go across the ocean.
Great. Can't wait for that to try and kill me at some point. Brilliant.
But hey, it's better than a Norwegian 737 across the pond.
I don't know if I agree. I feel quite comfortable on a 737 because that's basically the only aircraft I've ever spent any amount of serious time flying around, because like most of the flights that I've ever done have always been Ryanair flights, and they've always been, you know.
But have you done it for 6 or 8 hours?
No.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
There you go. So the last story, Armando, I think you should take this story, being it's a kind of another one of those, oh my God, what happened here stories. This one is on Flight Global. So Armando, what's this one all about?
Yeah, so this is about an A320 suffering loss of thrust as it entered a mountain wave. So Air Canada is probing an incident in which an Airbus A320 lost thrust on one engine as it passed through a mountain wave en route to Los Angeles. The aircraft, with 146 passengers and 5 crew members, was operating from Toronto on 27 January, says the Transportation Safety Board of Canada. It says the A320, registration Charlie Fox Lima Sierra Sierra, was cruising at 36,000 feet, some 85 miles southwest of Colorado Springs in the Rocky Mountains region. The aircraft passed through a mountain wave. Oscillations in the atmosphere caused when air current flow is disturbed over high terrain. The left-hand CFM56 power plant rolled back, says the board, from 90% of N1 to 60%. The aircraft started to lose speed and started to descend, it adds. The crew informed air traffic control of the situation, requesting a change in cruise altitude to 30,000 feet, but no emergency was declared. While the left-hand engine showed slight vibration, says the board, there was no alert from the aircraft's centralized monitoring system. The engine recovered shortly afterwards, and the aircraft landed without further incident. So I think this is a very complementary story to what we were just talking about. In this case, maybe an erroneous reading wasn't providing the right indications to the crew.
So this is something you've heard about before, Stephen? Mountain wave?
Yeah, at my airline we do actually a little bit of training on it because of just where we operate in the mountains, the Rocky Mountains in particular. We talk about it a pretty good bit, but it's usually at lower altitudes when you're coming out of like a valley on the high terrain airports during major weather events, not up at cruise altitude. I'm of the opinion that perhaps maybe that they were higher than they were supposed to be, and they might have had a low speed event, and they were just trying to put it off on something else. Because that's, I mean, I haven't experienced. I mean, maybe someone else has, but I don't see how Mountain Wave is going to reach you that high. It may be a shift in the jet stream or something, but I don't think it would cause your engine to roll back that much.
It does seem quite high.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the atmosphere is weird, but and it may be a terminology thing of what they're using here in this article as opposed to maybe what the crew reported, right? And for our non-turbine aviators, all these values. So the N1 value, it's a percentage, right? It's a percentage representation of what a normal should look like. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, but and then a rollback is just essentially anything that is an unscheduled, an unscheduled reduction of engine power due to something happening, right? Yeah. So when they're talking about N1 reductions and fluctuations and a rollback, there's probably 100 different things that could cause a rollback. It could be icing, it could be a fan blade, it could be a fuel issue.
It could just be a pump kicking on or off too, or cycling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Mountain Wave and disrupted airflow is a thing, but usually you're talking about compressor stalls and anything that disrupts the airflow inside the engine. So Mountain Wave, not sure. Could be a lot of things.
So that's good discussion there. Well done, you two. Big round of applause. Thank you. So that brings the commercial news segment to a close this week. Hope you all enjoyed those stories. So coming up next, then we have got some audio feedback that was sent in to us by listener Jan Hubner. If you remember, a few weeks back, Nev had the chance to fly on the A320 NEO. And, Jan has sent us in some feedback on the American Airlines 320 and of the 321 as well. And here it is.
Hello, gentlemen. This is Jan from Berlin. I just want to say thanks for the excellent work you're doing and also provide some feedback on episode 254 regarding the plans for American Airlines to operate the A320 NEO and the 321 LR on the longer routes. Some of you might know I have done a couple of runs on American's transcon services between the East and West Coast, which operate at the moment on 321 CO aircraft in the 3 class and as well on BA's London City to New York service. And from my point of view, it is a fascinating feeling having a single aircraft on a longer operation because it feels more private than it does in a wide-body aircraft. Unfortunately, I can't speak for economy, but if you have a proper seat, a smaller aircraft is usually nicer flying. It might be a bit more bumpy in regards to the smaller aircraft being affected by turbulence more than a wide-body would do. But on the other hand, it's a great experience, and if any one of you can have a chance, I would say go for it.
I think we will. We'll have to book some flights, I think, and go and sample it for ourselves. Perhaps we could ask Nev to book us on the BAs.
Actually, you mentioned Nev there. Now, he did send us some video footage, actually, didn't he?
Oh, yes. Earlier on today, Nev did send us some video feedback.
Yes,
from
video
Nev.
feedback. So although he's not here, he's still very much involved. Now, if you're in the UK or you've been following the weather and stuff, I think it's fair to say, Stephen, your arrival here into Stansted was lively.
It was very brisk.
Okay, that's another word. Yes. Okay. When did you get here, Armando? When did you fly back?
I got here on Sunday.
Oh right. Oh no, the weather was quite friendly then.
Yeah, the weather was nice.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this storm has got a name, actually. They've actually named this storm.
Something like Eric or something.
Eric,
stupid.
is it, or something? Yeah.
Something like that.
Storm Eric.
I feel very embarrassed about the names that we see. It's like, was it a few months back and it was Storm Doris?
Oh, Doris, yeah. I'm still waiting for the Storm Bob.
Yeah, I know. I can't help but feel very embarrassed about being British sometimes. It's like, you get Hurricane Katrina like in the States and stuff, and what do we have? Bob.
Yeah.
Great. Storm
Dave.
Bob. Yeah.
Storm Dave.
Yeah.
Storm Dave rolled
I mean,
in
it's
today.
very English.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, go back to what we were saying about. So Never sent us a little bit of video, which I shall just play out for us.
This is
now.
coming into Heathrow.
Yeah, so he's coming into Heathrow. He's been at. People who were watching last week will know that he's been in Amsterdam this week for a trade show, yeah, it's quite a. Actually, it doesn't. I don't think it really does it justice. You can just see that it's banking quite a lot,
rocking a bit.
Yes, you can see it for sure.
Rocking about backwards and forwards. And I know from what's been saying, in the BFF chat group and stuff, people were like flights from Emirates, which were supposed to be landing at Gatwick, were being diverted to Manchester because the weather was just so bad. Your wind was so bad. It was not good really. Okay.
Looks a bit grey.
Oh, cool. Blimey, that was a bit scary.
Very.
Was that? Was he in? Is it? You say 27 left or something? I don't know. Which runway was he coming into? Do we know?
I can't tell.
Coming into the grass, I think, at this rate.
Well, yeah, there is that.
Oh, there's the Queen of the Skies there. BA's Queen of the Skies parked up. 777s.
That was a firm
There's
landing.
Concorde.
Ah, yes.
Oh, nice Virgin.
It's all right when it's on the ground. Yeah.
Oh, it's got a bit of a flat spot on tyre.
Right, okay. I should say several people actually today have sent us, including Richard, Big Jet TV were actually following stuff coming into and out of Heathrow today, and they did catch quite an event today. Unfortunately, we have contacted them requesting permission to play it. Unfortunately, we didn't get the authorization to do so. But
yeah, take yourself. If you're in the UK, take yourselves over to Big Jet TV because, as Matt said, they captured
it's actually on their Twitter feed, isn't it? You don't need to subscribe to see it.
It's a rather interesting landing of actually go around of a Dreamliner, of a BA Dreamliner.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Actually, Lane Street has said in the chat room that he's a bit worried that possibly Nev may have dropped his gin and tea.
I know. It is always a bit of a rough landing, to be fair. I mean, it's what can you say, really?
Actually, I'm surprised Nev could get that kind of view there from his seat in 1A.
Right. Okay. I have to confess, I seem to recall from last week's show that he may have been slumming it.
Oh, blimey.
In cattle class this week. I know. Things have gone terribly wrong for him, mate. What can I say?
So thanks to obviously to Jan Hubner as well for sending his audio feedback in. Thanks for that. And thanks for Nev for sending that video in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I say, and seriously, loads of people have contacted us during the day, as I say, Richard included, about that thing. As I say, it's a shame we couldn't get the permission, because that is, if you get a chance, in fact, actually, the link that Richard has emailed me, I will pop into the chat room, actually, because I can do that, can't I? It's worth having a look at it. If not, as I say, search Big Jet TV. You'll see what it was all about. It was incredible.
So next we are going to hand things over to our newest member of the team, Armando. So Armando, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, as I was looking for military news this week, I was thinking, it's kind of light. But after we have a news story from the Euro Cleaning Journal...
suddenly it doesn't seem so bad, does it, Armando?
It may tell me that I'm maybe not looking hard enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I know.
So, we will do our best, and it was kind of quiet, so the stories are not the most thrilling, but let's shoot for them anyways. So, in this case, are you ready, Carlos?
I'm ready.
Steven?
I'm ready.
Matt?
Oh, I was born ready, mate.
Let's go then. So the first story here is going to sound real similar to that KC-46 story, but it is about the Marine Corps receiving the new CH-53 and how it's pretty much a mess, and it could face some serious delays. So it goes, the Marine Corps took delivery of its first CH-53C King Stallion in May 2018, but since then, the heavy lift helicopter has faced a series of mechanical issues that are impacting its expected operational date. A Department of Defense report said that the CH-53K's initial operational capability milestone, originally set for December of 2019, is likely to be pushed back. And the test and evaluation will not kick off until 2021 now, to correct multiple, air quotes, well, not air quotes, real quotes, design deficiencies during testing. Let's see, the Corps still expects that most of its most powerful heavy lift helicopter will make its first planned operational deployment, which is slated to sometime in 2023-2024, according to Marine spokesman Captain Christopher Harrison. The Corps is closely working with the Navy and Sikorsky to reevaluate the program and its execution timelines, impacts to the schedule, and will be updated accordingly. Let's see, the Department of Defense laid out a slew of mechanical issues found during initial testing, including airspeed indication anomalies, low reliability of main rotor gearbox, that's pretty critical, tail boom and tail rotor structural problems, overheating of main rotor dampers, fuel system anomalies, high temperatures in the number 2 engine bay, and hot gas ingestion by the number 2 engine. So all of these things is probably going to delay the initial delivery of this helicopter, or the operational capability of this helicopter. And it goes on to describe how it has a lift of 36,000 pounds externally, 27,000 pounds internally for about 110 nautical miles.
Now, I mean, I popped the picture up of this.
I think it looks awesome.
It's a monster. I mean,
awesome.
I don't understand how it gets in the air. It's just like, I don't know.
So the 53 platform has been around since Vietnam.
Right.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, it looks exactly the same.
It looks angry. It just looks angry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a proven workhorse. It's been in every conflict that I think has happened in the last sort of 50 years or so. But this, kind of like this, the KC-46 is in the same boat. It's a 767, great proven airplane. But once you start modifying it to a point, and you start sort of going outside of its design envelope.
I mean, so did they just upgrade the engines and the rotor gearbox? Is that all they changed out? Because it looks exactly the same. Best I
think externally it looks the same. It's probably got different engines, different avionics. Probably, who knows? Who knows what's in there?
$87 million per aircraft.
Oh,
Armando.
cheap!
Just 87.
Bargain.
No, they're talking about $138 million per aircraft.
Oh yeah, I see it now.
I was just looking at the flyaway. Flyaway best price tag.
That's the
like
discount.
taking it off the lot,
discounted
right?
price.
After you negotiate.
That's
all right. Good luck with that. Good luck getting that one past Gemma Carlos. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, the lift and capabilities of this helicopter are pretty awesome, and I just think you could carry quite a bit of gear with that. Yeah.
Quite a bit of
rock
gear,
up,
ladies
rock up
and
to a
gentlemen. You heard it.
rock
here
up to
first.
a disco with the TriStar van slung underneath.
Yeah.
Right.
So moving on to the next story, and this one is on the combataircraft.keypublishing.com, and the headline: New Eagles increasingly likely for US Air Force. So the US Air Force looks to be moving towards a purchase of the new F-15X Eagles from Boeing, as F-15Cs that are attached to 3 active duty units could be replaced with the new F-15X, enabling the older Eagles to cascade down to the Air National Guard. This will in turn enable the ANG to retire its new two-seat F-15Ds that retain original AN APG 63 radars. The USAF is facing a conundrum of whether to embark on expensive upgrades that are needed for its existing F-15Cs or purchase new aircraft. Last week, Lieutenant General? Lieutenant General Arnold Bunch of the US Air Force's top acquisition officer said that the US Air Force will seek to add new Eagles to the FY202 defence budget in order to replace the older F-15Cs and Ds still in service. This is linked to meeting the new National Defence Strategy with increased F-35 purchase rates, unable to meet the US Air Force's time-critical demand for an expansion. Senior US Air Force officials want to tap into the advanced F-15 that has been developed for Saudi Arabia and Qatar. The F-15X will likely be a single-seat version of these variants and possibly available in relatively short order from Boeing. It marks a significant shift in posture for the US Air Force, which previously said it would only purchase new fifth-generation fighter aircraft. However, keeping the F-15 line active in St. Louis means the US does not become overly reliant on Lockheed Martin. In addition, the F-15X is likely to be sold as a spend to save. A new Eagle runs out at around the $100 million mark. Officials have made no secret that it is that the suite of upgrades required to keep the old Eagles credible is almost prohibitively expensive. New weapons racks, new wings, upgraded cockpits, and new electronic warfare systems, protection systems to mention but a few. Even throwing huge upgrade packages at the F-15C would still see the aircraft falling short of the capabilities of the advanced F-15, which features a digital flight control system. This is critical in that it opens up wing stations 1 and 9, enabling expanded wing weapons carriage, a significant factor for the US Air Force as it seeks to up-arm its Eagles to act as weapons trucks to complement the stealthy 5th generation fighters. Now, I like the F-15. I've got to say that's I probably prefer that to the F-16, to be fair. Looks,
absolutely.
Yeah. Armando, what are your views?
Yeah, I think it's yet another smart move on behalf of the Air Force, and you saw this similar to last week's story with light attack aircraft. A lot of these purchases and sort of acquisitions depend on our partner nations. So it's sort of we're going to all go into this together and make sure that this airplane is going to be viable and fly for the next however many years. But yeah, if you know something works, you don't mess with it too much. So as we sort of figure out the F-22 and the F-35, I think keeping a level of investment in the F-15 is probably a smart idea.
So, Stephen, the next story is for you, and this one is on. This one's on Flight Global, actually, again.
It is. This is the U.S. Navy marked retirement of its last legacy McDonnell Douglas F-18 Hornet fleet in a flyover ceremony sunset on February 1st at Naval Air Station Oceana in Virginia Beach. The Blue Blasters of Strike Fighter Squadron VFA-34 were the last squadron in the United States Navy flying the Hornet, most recently aboard the aircraft carrier Carl Vinson during freedom of navigation patrols in the South China Sea in 2018, says the United States Navy. The legacy FA-18C Hornet is being replaced with the FA-18 Block 3 Super Hornet, including the single-seat Echo model and the two-seat F model. The twin-engine Hornet was based on the Northrop YF-17 design submitted for the U.S. Air Force's lightweight fighter program in the 1970s. It lost out to General Dynamics YF-16, the F-16 Fighting Falcon, in 1975, however. A few months later, that decision, the United States Navy announced that it would buy a Navy version of the aircraft jointly developed with McDonnell Douglas and Northrop, which would become the FA-18 Hornet. The Hornet replaced the Vietnam-era F-4 Phantom and the A-7 Corsair II. The first FA-18 aircraft completed the first flight in 1978 and was approved for full production in 1983, says the United States Navy. Boeing acquired the program in 1977 when it merged with McDonnell Douglas. The first combat mission was in 1986 during Operation El Dorado Canyon, the U.S. bombing in Libya. The United States Navy says it's also served in every major U.S. operation since 1991. Born more than 40 years ago, the Hornet entered operational service of the U.S. Navy in 1984, and for the next 35 years she proudly served the nation from the flight deck of its aircraft carriers in all seas across the globe, said William Mathis, commanding officer of VFA 35 at the retirement ceremony. The Hornet is known as many things: legacy, highly reliable, multi-role attack fighter, but to us she will always be an old friend. The Hornet will continue to serve the Marine Corps and the Navy support units, but for the operational Navy, it's time to say goodbye. Well, it looks like the oldest of the F-18s are finally coming to retirement, for the U.S. Navy at least. I believe some of the ones that are the same age are still flying in Canada now from Captain Nick's old unit in Australia.
Do you know, I can't believe, Matt, this F-18 that Stephen's been talking about first flew when we were 2 years old.
Oh,
that's so sweet.
1978.
So it's been in the air, like I say, it's been in the air 40 years then, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it just proves, doesn't it, this airframe is it's definitely done well.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It's done well.
Until I read this article, I didn't know that it was developed from the F-16.
Okay.
Well, I think it was saying that it was in a design competition. The Air Force was looking for a new lightweight fighter, and Northrop was submitting this design, and General Dynamics submitted the design for the F-16, which I guess when you're talking about lightweight fighters, a carrier-based aircraft definitely is not lightweight
Right.
per se. It's got some bulky framework and stuff for hitting the deck hard and everything, but it's a good jet. It's not as good looking as the F-14, but it's still very good looking.
Yeah, I like the way the F-18 looks, and I think it was Richard Adams in the chat room that's noting that the Tornadoes also were finally retired and brought back home this week to Marham, I believe.
I used to enjoy those flying over here.
Yeah.
Noisy.
Yeah, that is one of the advantages about living here. Actually, we get a lot of.
We are lucky, very lucky
here. We get a lot
here.
of military.
We're lucky actually because of the valley that we're kind of in, essentially here.
I assume they fly over us because basically there's nothing here worth keeping.
They like to use this area as a training ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty much fly low and fast with impunity around East Anglia.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's nothing but sort of sheep and
is that even in the Cub, Armando?
Yeah, you bet. The only thing you got to watch out for is that one radio tower near I.
Yeah, very true. I know the one. Yeah. So the last story in this week, it's in regards to a popular destination, sort of not far from here actually, the Imperial War Museum. And Matt, this one is about D-Day 75, isn't it? The 75th anniversary.
Yeah, indeed. So this is actually a press release from the Imperial War Museum, D-Day 75, as Carlos says. It was embargoed until midnight on Monday, the 28th of January. It's very exciting, isn't it? Embargoed. I feel quite honoured. Anyway, mass flight display recreating D-Day mission to lead Imperial War Museum's unprecedented 75th anniversary programme. In June 2019, Imperial War Museums, the IWM, will mark the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings on an unprecedented scale. IWM will retell the extraordinary land, air and sea story through its Second World War collection and its 3 historic sites: HMS Belfast, Imperial War Museum Duxford and the Churchill War Rooms. Seriously, boys and girls,
I haven't been there yet.
Have you not
been?
No, not the church.
Oh
no.
my goodness me, it is the most amazing.
Yeah, I need to go.
Yeah, you need to do. You and I are going to go.
I've done HMS Belfast and I've done obviously
it
Imperial War
incredible.
Museum.
If you haven't been, seriously, boys and girls, you need to treat yourself. It is incredible. Working in partnership with Dax over Normandy, a Second World War mass flight display will lead the Imperial War Museum's anniversary plan. Staged from Imperial War Museum's Duxford, this ambitious display will culminate in a cross-channel flight and parachute landing in Normandy on the 6th of June. How cool is that? Recreating recreating the remarkable Second World War story. Ahead of their mass flight, the IWM Duxford will host the greatest number of Douglas C-47 Skytrain aircraft in one location since the Second World War, descending on on the 4th and 5th of June for Dax over Duxford. Over the 2 days, visitors will be able to see more than 30 Dakotas, aircraft synonymous with the D-Day landings, as well as mass parachute jumps and flight displays taking place across the museum. On the 6th of June 1944, the greatest seaborne invasion in history began with the mission to liberate Europe from Nazi occupation, otherwise known as Operation Overlord. Secrecy was vital to the success of this highly complex land, air and sea operation. By midnight on the 6th of June, 156,000 Allied troops had arrived in Normandy despite challenging weather conditions and fierce German defences. The subsequent Normandy campaign saw British and American troops fighting through France for almost 2 months before reaching Germany itself. D-Day was one of the most significant victories by the Western Allies during the Second World War. The eventual collapse of German resistance in France convinced German High Command that defeat was inevitable and began the process by which Allied victory was achieved in 1945. As part of its anniversary plans, IWM will highlight the roles that its historic sites and Churchill played in this pivotal moment in history and honour the men who sacrificed so much during this intrepid mission. HMS Belfast led the Allied fleet, opening fire at 5:27 a.m. on the 6th of June 1944. American fighter aircraft flew from IWM Duxford in support of D-Day operations, and Churchill War Rooms was the nerve centre of strategic decision-making during the Second World War. Additional D-Day themed programming will take place on HMS Belfast on Saturday the 8th and Sunday the 9th of June, from interactive activities where visitors will step into the shoes of people who made D-Day happen, to bespoke D-Day group tours on board one of the largest warships present on D-Day. Further announcements of the Imperial War Museum's full programme of D-Day related events, activities and publications will be released in due course. But yeah, I mean, if you haven't been to Duxford, if you haven't been to the Imperial War Museums, then this does sound like a great time to go and do so. The only thing is I would say get your tickets in ASAP, because they do sell out very often.
What's in Duxford? I haven't heard of that location.
Oh, you actually go past it. We actually go past it to Stansted.
Oh.
I think I just found our replacement for flying tomorrow, Stephen.
Is it like a big aviation museum?
Oh my goodness me, it is. It is massive.
So it's a bit. That's a to call it an aviation museum is an understatement. That it's probably 5 hangars of pristine aircraft, and a good number of them are in flying condition.
Oh wow!
And it is at an old, I believe Duxford was a Spitfire base.
I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and you can, you know, what's funny is you can fly in there because it's
an active airfield. Yeah,
it's an active airfield, and they do these great air shows. But we could take the Cessna 152 and go fly in there, pay your landing fee, and that gets you into the museum.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a nice setup.
Yeah, it is. Actually, yeah. We'll talk about that after the show, actually, because if you need to go and see Duxford. You need to go and see Duxford. And actually, on a Saturday, you quite often have stuff taxiing, taking off. I mean, there's quite often... They've got a 2-seater Spitfire there, haven't they? And that's quite often taking off.
There's a couple of Tiger Moths, and I think the Catalina's there too.
Yeah, PBY Catalina.
Actually, I don't know if Ben's still in the chat room, because he has Ben Rourke. He has something to do with the guys that do the experience.
He's flown in there. I've saw that. He's got a video on YouTube.
He has something
of
to
him
do
flying
with
in
the experience flight people.
They have a functioning PBY.
Yes, they do. Catalina. Yeah, they have. It does the rounds of the air shows every year. We were lucky enough
Michael got quite excited, actually, didn't he? Because it was actually at Farnborough.
That was not last year. That was the year before, wasn't it? Yeah, when we had Micah here, and Brian Coleman, and we interviewed the flight crew, didn't we?
We did, absolutely. Yeah, we had to sort of tear Micah away from them after a while.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, he was a very happy bunny, wasn't he?
Micah loves it.
Wow.
Yeah,
he loves the Catalina.
He does, absolutely. It's a beautiful aircraft. There's no two ways about it.
So that is the last story in the military news segment for this week. And as you will know, we have our special guest Stephen with us in the studio tonight. And Stephen, I thought we'd have a quick chat with you before we wrap things up. And obviously, because I think everyone's followed your progress from when you started. Obviously, you've got your own aircraft, the Mooney, but you've obviously done your aerial photography stuff, and you've ascended to the lofty heights of an airline pilot. So yeah, fill us in. How's it been?
So I left my survey job back last July and started training at Acme Junior, and had to do my ATP, CTP testing and all that. Passed that, and then did a month and 2 weeks of ground school, learning about jet operations, airline operations, operational specifications specific to my company, and then went in for 2.5 weeks of simulator training. And it was as bad as people have told me. The sim is horrible. It's just awful. So I made it past all of that, and then I had 2 IOE trips, so initial operating experience, where you're actually finally flying the jet with people on it. And that was a surreal experience at that point, just, knowing that there's people in the back, and, you're in a real airliner, flying around and everything. It's been a very surreal experience that first couple weeks doing it.
So you've got your 3 stripes on your arm?
I've got 3 stripes. So first officer.
Yeah, FO. And what's the... Because obviously we've had stories on the show about uniforms that some of the airlines have. Have you shirt and tie and...
we're not as fancy as... Al or Captain Nick's airline with our get-up. It's just white shirt with black with gold bars and just a black tie, black pants. And I try to spice up a little bit. I got some cowboy boots I wear with mine. Just, change it up a little. But it's actually just to walk around in the snow and stuff, because dress shoes do not do well in snow.
So tell us a bit about the aircraft that you're currently flying then for Acme Junior.
Yeah, so I am type rated in the CL65, which is the Canadair regional jet 200 aircraft, and then I'm also qualified to fly the 7 and 900 variant of the CRJ series. So the CRJ 200 was the first one, came out in the early 90s, was based off the Challenger business jet with some changes to it to make it more commercial friendly. And so the 200 seats 50 people, it's all coach, and then the 700's got a bunch of different configurations depending on the partner we're with, but it's got improved engines, improved range, and it's got it has straight strut landing gear, so the landings are more stiff, and then it's got leading edge devices on the front, as to where the 200 doesn't. And then the CRJ9 is stretched even further than the 700 and has bigger engines as well, and it holds up to 76 people.
So that's rear mounted engines on the aircraft?
Yep, they're all rear mounted on the side. It's a baby Mad Dog looking aircraft. Yeah.
So Armando,
category.
Yeah.
Armando, we've got some questions from the chat room, haven't we?
Yeah, so I actually really like this question. Tony S. in the chat room is asking, what were some of your main considerations when you were choosing a regional airline?
Oh, good question.
Yes.
That's a loaded question.
It is, and it's different for everybody. A lot of people go to a particular airline because they want to fly a particular airplane. For me, it was base location and then pay. Base location mostly because I live in the Atlanta area, so obviously I wanted to be close to home. I didn't want to have to commute back and forth, even though I up until recently have had to commute back and forth to Chicago, and it's such a pain. I mean, it's not just like you drive to work. You have to drive to the airport, get on a plane, fly to another city, then you have a little crash pad you stay in while you're waiting to go work and everything. It's just, it gets old really quick. So I was fortunate enough I only had to be out of where I live for right at 4 months. And then the pay scale thing, which, I mean, those that know the airline I work for, its pay scale isn't the best in the world when I first got hired there. But in the grand scheme of things, being at home was more important than the pay to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys see that differently depending on their situation. I know a lot of guys, they're fresh out of school, they just want to make money and fly the most advanced aircraft and hurry up and move on. But that's always what's best for somebody.
I mean, really, you're flying a business jet. Really?
I mean, the 200 in particular is it's basically a business jet. If you park it next to a Challenger, you're going to be hard pressed to tell the differences in between the two from the outside. And you go on the inside, yes, you can tell the difference. But the 7 and 9, they are true airliners. They're meant to haul people around. They're slightly more comfortable than the 200. The way the cabin's configured, you don't have to look down like this to see the window. You can actually look at about eye level and stuff like that. They've got better overhead bin space. You can actually put a bag in it. And they perform a lot better. The 200 has horrible performance. I know for us, when you're in winter ops, to take off with the anti-ice system on, you actually have to have the APU up to give enough power to power the anti-ice system and take off.
Is that a bit similar to the? Captain Nick is always talking about the A340 300 and having hair dryers on the wings. Is that a similar power plant issue?
I would compare it to having a cooling fan on a laptop. That's what I would compare it to. Wow. Yeah.
So I had another question for everybody watching the YouTube video. So we've seen with the new the green screen. So there's pictures behind you.
Uh-huh.
Would you can you introduce who November 963 Echo Alpha is?
Oh yeah, so the plane behind me here, 963 Echo Alpha. This is my Mooney that I did my commercial certificate in and everything, and then what I still fly when I have time to. This is actually from Oshkosh this year when I went up there. I actually haven't flown in 3 months because I haven't been home, but I have some co-owners that still fly it around and keep it in good working order. So it's a
Was that your primary avenue to building time to get to the regionals, or was it the survey?
The survey was the biggest time, though. This was more for getting certificates and meeting the initial requirements to get to a commercial rating to be able to advance further. And I actually had an aircraft before this. I had a Cessna 150 that I bought off Craigslist.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Actually,
wow. Does Craigslist have things that aren't horrendous on it? Then, by the sound of it.
Yeah. I mean,
what vintage was that? Or was that Cessna? Was that
It was a '67.
I learned to fly in a '67.
It's not a bad airplane.
No,
it's
not at all.
Just off a sketchy website. Anyway, but I did a lot of time building in it too, because you could go really slow and not burn a lot of gas and everything. But I sold it to upgrade to this to finish out my training and everything.
Yeah. Indeed. And what about that survey? So what led you to the survey job?
It was I don't know how best way to put it. Life-changing event at my current job. Just stuff going on that I didn't really like, and that kind of pushed me to start looking for the survey gig and do all that. So I started that in October of 2017. And then I was at an airline by August the following year. So did a lot of flying doing survey.
Wow.
Yeah. How many hours do you think you banked doing all your survey flying?
Probably a little over 900 in that length of time. And you know that sounds like a lot.
You weren't doing it that long, actually, were you?
Yeah, I wasn't. But you got to realize that we're going up as soon as the sun angle starts, and you're going up 30 minutes early. And during the spring and the summer, the sun window can be upwards of 12 hours. So you're 30 minutes in the front, 30 minutes on the back side, 13 hours a day. If you get a good week, I mean it adds up quick.
Wow.
I mean, you've got to be dedicated to do it. I mean, from the last.
Well, of course, in your case, you had a goal, didn't you? I mean, this was all This was all part of your bigger picture plan, I suppose, wasn't it? So it's not the best flying in the world. It's not the most exciting. I mean, how you didn't fall asleep a lot.
This picture behind us right now is a prime example. The other one.
Sorry. That one.
I mean, this was April in Michigan last year, and this is what was going on. It was snowy out here cleaning out the airplane. That type situation. That you're dealing with the survey stuff. So like that week I didn't fly a whole lot, but the next week it was sunny and I flew every day. So just that kind of dynamic. And some of the guys, you're not as motivated to go fly. I mean, a lot of them, guys still in college or straight out of college where they haven't had a full-time job yet, and they just with no direct supervisor there at the time, weren't pushed to do it. So.
Yeah. To each their own. I mean, I was motivated to hurry up and get out of it because 12 hours in that thing is, it's not fun.
Yeah, cold by the look of it as well.
It's very, very, very cold.
Yeah.
That was manual de-ice then.
Yeah.
Yes. Credit card outside the window.
Yeah. Old school. Yeah.
So Richard King in the chat room, Steve, and he's kind of asked a question of the route that you took to get to the right seat. So obviously you started off with you're getting your private pilot's license, and then from there.
So I got my private license first, bought the 150, did some time building in it, and then rented a 172 from a flight school and did my instrument rating in it. And then I took like a year building more time and working on a commercial with the Mooney. And then from that point, I actually wasn't really going to transition to the right seat because I had a really good job at the time, and I really enjoyed flying GA, and was actually looking at getting a twin and not to go in the commercial route at all. But life happens, decided to go the commercial route, so finished that out, and then started the survey gig. And then about when I was 400 hours off of my ATP time, I started studying for the test and studying for the interview, and had a job offer by May of last year. Then I started class in August. So,
how long was it from when you joined Acme Junior, from when you joined to when you sat in that right seat?
Right at 6 months. That's including finishing out, building my time, and then all the testing and stuff to get to the point of that training.
How difficult was that testing at?
Well, I mean, the ATP test back in the States is nothing compared to what y'all have over here with the ATP. I don't even understand the frozen and unfrozen thing, but it's only one test. I believe y'all have 15. So in that aspect, it's not as difficult. But the actual training is. I mean, for me, I've never flown a jet. I understand how a jet works, how airlines work, because I've been a flight attendant. I've worked the ground crew before. Have all that piece, but the actual flying the jet part and working with the guy that's in the seat next to you, that part was a difficult learning curve. Mostly because I've done everything flying on my own, so you're wanting to, change the automation yourself, program the box yourself, getting used to getting the other guy to do it, or CRM type stuff. That was challenging, and then all the different op specs and SOPM stuff, that the rules you have to work on or work under, understanding those and applying them to your knowledge you already have of flying, and then expanding that knowledge and applying it to flying the jet.
Do you think, because we obviously talked to a lot of listeners who might have been flight attendants and want to go on to progress to become a pilot, do you think that having that job as a flight attendant or cabin crew helped from that move into the right seat?
It helps you in the way that you have a better understanding of what's going on behind you. I've had a couple of captains that I feel like they're disconnected with what is going on back there. Prime example, I was stuck in the middle of nowhere in Illinois. The fuel truck had broke at the airport, and we didn't have enough gas really to run the APU because we just came in from Chicago. So we had already boarded the plane and everything, and the captain's like, oh, we'll just wait and see what they want to do. And I'm sitting there looking at the fuel, and then it's snowing outside, it's cold. I was like, well, why don't we do this, that? And I just kept suggesting stuff, and he was just, let's just wait and see. I was like, well, there's people in the back that are cold because we can't close the door yet, and we only have so much gas before we can't do anything with the airplane at all. And they didn't have a tow vehicle there because of where we were at. It's very remote. So finally, I convinced him, let's, the plane. He's like, okay, yeah, it's probably going to be a while after we, talked with the fuelers a couple times. And it turned out we ended up taxiing the plane over to the fuel tank itself and plugging into the feed from there to get it gassed up and everything. But that's besides the point. But just when situations come up, having a better understand what the flight attendant's dealing with and applying what so they don't get in a worse situation than they already are. That type of thing.
So an important question that we often pick up on on the show is: are you one of these pilots who'd like to give the people in the back an idea of what's going on in and around while you're flying, or would you rather just completely keep the comms off until and
every captain's different, but I've had a couple that we are short of the gate, or we've had a mechanical issue, and they're talking to operations or somebody. They're like, hey, let the people in the back know, and I'm just like, well, do I really want to let them know what's going on? Do I know? Do I not? I mean, my first trip in the 900, which was my training flight, we're taxiing out to the runway. We get a message, so we pull off, and he's like, hey, I'm going to call the mechanics and see what we can do with this and everything. And he's like, just tell them what's going on. I was like, I don't need to tell him exactly. He's like, oh, no, don't do that. So just stuff like you got. So
speaking as I'm quite well known for being a relatively nervous flyer. I mean, the minute I hear somebody in the front of the plane sitting there going, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for the delay. We are experiencing a few technical problems at the moment." I mean, my arse would be off that seat trying to get out of the fire. Like so fast. It's just
the maintenance engineers are attempting to glue the engine back
absolutely. on. Yeah. Somebody's putting some gaffer tape over something important. But do you know what I mean? I mean, I get. I suppose you want some information because it's clear that you haven't taken off at the time you were supposed to. I mean, Carlos is the exact opposite. Armando, I dare say you're exactly the same, where you want as much information as can be possibly thrown at you. As where old scaredy pants over here is just like.
I want all the details.
I don't want to know.
Oil leaks, air leaks.
Just tell me it's because you're waiting for the toilet to be mended or something, and then I can live with it. It's just like.
Yeah, well, so the nickname for my airplane's the Canadian Reset Jet. Right. So, because most of the issues that we have, you can reset something and it fixes itself.
Is it made by Microsoft?
Funny enough,
no.
the flight data computer is DOS based.
Oh, please be kidding!
No, I'm very serious.
Oh,
God, I'm no computer geek, but even I know what that is.
Yeah, I know.
Wow,
this is not great. Anyway,
actually, Armando, we've got a question from Richard King, haven't we, in the chat room?
Yeah, and I was kind of wondering this myself. Any scary moments during the survey work, or really any other flying?
Well, so with the survey, probably the scariest moment I did. There were 5 of us working the same grid. And we had our own frequency we talked to, then we talked to ATC for just spacing, depending on where we're at. And we knew the lines were getting closer to one another, and me and the guy I was paired up with, we're talking back and forth saying which line we're on. And he's like, hey, you're on line 12, right? And I'm like, yeah, which one are you on? He's like, 13. And we start doing the math in our head, we're like, oh, this isn't good. And then the controller goes, hey, you've got company traffic 2 miles, same altitude, and we're like, oh. And he's like, do you have the traffic in sight? And I see the dot, and I'm like, yeah, I got him in sight. And then he calls my buddy, he's like, you got the traffic in sight? Yeah. And then we just do the pass, and we're quarter mile, maybe same altitude.
But you're talking to the guy, you know where you're at. So, I mean, it wasn't as scary, but I mean, just one of those situations.
Imagine if you had TCAS systems in there at the time.
And
that'd be going crazy.
And that's my next. I had my first TCAS event last week.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into it too much, but had an RA, and it was a bad situation. The controller got us slammed down, then put us right on top of a guy. So, yeah, a little bit more scary when you got people in the back. So
exactly, yeah.
The main micer is actually saying, "Oh, come on, Stephen. The scariest moment in your survey work was when you had to be a passenger in my car."
It wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad.
Indeed. Well, look, boys and girls, I'm really sorry, but it is time to start wrapping up. So, Stephen, thank you. I can't believe that you're actually sat in this studio. I mean, I can't believe you've been mauled by my savage Rottweiler of a dog, obviously. It's just been such a privilege to have you in the building, as it were.
Can you believe it? We had Stephen Ivy sitting here now.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Our first guest from the US to sit in the studio.
Well, no, Armando's been here.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, but I live here.
Yeah, he lives here. He lives in the UK. Well, only for a little while. But
yeah, I know. Yeah. Absolutely. We're about to lose him. Yeah, he's going home to his
Plus,
lovely wife.
Armando is officially a host. You see.
Well, that's true. Yes. All right. Maybe that doesn't count. Yeah. Okay. But
But no, thanks very much, Stephen, for coming in. It's been awesome to see you.
Thank you. This has been eye-opening. What goes on to the show going?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes ignorance is bliss, isn't it? Yeah, not knowing.
That's the thing. Stephen got to see what happened in here before Matt pushed the go live button.
Yeah, usually a lot of swearing, if I'm honest. But anyway, there we are. That's all part of the fun because nothing's working.
Carlos, there's one more question. Right?
Oh, go on. You better ask that one, Armando. What do you know what that one is?
The most important.
Yeah.
Tony S says, "Hey, you didn't ask the most.
Right, are you ready for
most
this?
important question?"
Well, the chat room is going wild.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Go on then.
So, Mr. Stephen Ivy.
Yes.
If you could fly any aircraft, current or past, what would it be?
Probably the
F-14. Bring back the Tomcat, said somebody.
Tomcat.
You know, I make the joke occasionally when people, in the U.S. hit this whole "what do you identify as" thing. I tell them I identify as an F-14.
I don't even know what that means. Somebody explain that. It doesn't take a lot. It's wow. As I say,
Top Gun.
Yeah. Okay. I have seen that now.
Yeah. Matt's seen that film.
Yeah, I have actually seen it.
Hold on, Stephen. Richard King says, Maverick or Iceman.
Oh.
Can I be Goose?
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Just because I don't really want to be Val Kilmer or Tom Cruise.
Okay, that's a damning indictment. Yeah.
Oh, so that is where we are going to wrap up
bombshell
this week's show. So we're going to say a massive thanks to everyone who has joined us in the YouTube live chat room this evening. Don't forget, for those of you who download the show as an audio version, thanks for doing that, but don't forget to catch us on the live shows every week. Normally on a Friday we go live at 7 p.m. and watch the show and join in the chat room, because the chat room tonight has been awesome as always, and all the usual family members.
I just realised I've screwed up the visuals on mine. Look, I've chopped my arm off.
Oh well, not to worry.
Never mind.
There could be worse things that
Very
could happen.
painful.
And also we're going to say a big thanks to Armando, who's back this week with us. Thanks for coming on with us again, Armando. Always good to see you.
Thank you guys for having me on, as usual.
Fantastic. And that's it. That is where we bring the show to a close. So we'll see you next week. I think it's the show next week is next Saturday evening again. That's because with me will be another very special guest, and I'm travelling all the way to Nottingham to go and see them. So
and I shall be sitting there
in this seat. This is going to be hilarious.
What do I press?
How does this work? Yeah, there's going to be a lot of phone calls to Nev, I think, before I get here.
Nev, what button do I press?
Absolutely. So yes, if you've got any sense, make sure you're here to watch that, because it is going to be absolutely hilarious. So I've just remembered I've forgotten to do something, so keep chatting for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. I'm doing it as quick as I can. There we are. Oh, that wasn't too bad.
So that is where we're going to bring episode number 255 of the Plain Talking UK podcast to a close. Big thanks again to everyone who's joined us tonight. Thanks to all the hosts and guest hosts, and don't forget to join us again next weekend on Saturday night for episode 256. Have a great weekend. fly safe, stay safe, whatever you're doing, and enjoy
Stay
yourselves.
out of the wind, boys and girls.
Stay out of the wind.
Stay out of the wind.
Because Storm Bob is going to be a basher.
Eric.
Eric, sorry, Eric.
Yeah. Anyway, take care, everyone.
Take care,
We'll see you
everyone.
next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Are you having a go at your terrible